I'm not trying to be a Dak Prescott apologist here because I am an Eagles fan. But
Okay.
to sit here and blame Dak Prescott for one taking money that was given to him on the table when he was going to get that money anywhere else, to me, I think that's unfair to a guy like Dak Prescott because I'm sure if you were in a situation or if Jay were in a situation where your job said, hey, look, we're going to pay you $60 million, even though the results have not been what we wanted the results to be. But, you know, what else are we going to do? You'd be like, hell yeah, sign me up. I'll take it any day. You'll take it every single day of the year. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to kill Dak Prescott for wanting his money, and good for him because, quite frankly,
Right.
you see what happens in the NFL. One injury can change your whole career. So, get your money, man, and let the Dallas Cowboys keep losing because from where I'm sitting, I'm a happy camper about it. So,
You know what? You're right. And I mean, you was doing your best impression of a Dak Prescott fan just now. I don't know where that came from, but I can tell you, you know, I talked to some Cowboy fans, and I'm telling you, they do not like that. They do not like Dak Prescott, man.
they better.
And I don't know, they
I
just
don't know,
don't.
man. I don't know. I know they don't, but I think when you actually think about it,
Mhm.
what's been the one steady hand, the one constant in Dallas for the past 10 years? In all of their chaos, in all of their nonsense, it's
Yeah,
Dak Prescott. He's the reason that they're even a relevant team, that they even float around being at minimum a 500 team.
yeah,
Without him, they're dog shit. Like, they are not a good football team. He helps them be a better football team. It's not easy to find a Dak Prescott. You put Dak Prescott on another team, you're like, hell yeah, I got a quarterback that I can ride with. Can you imagine if Dak Prescott were in San Francisco? Can you imagine if you were in Detroit? Can you imagine if you were on another team that had even a remote? Think about him in Pittsburgh. What if he were in Pittsburgh right
Ooh,
now? He'd be doing better than what Russell Wilson's doing.
oh,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
absolutely.
So, like Dak Prescott's not a bad quarterback, and I know Dallas Cowboy fans want to kill the guy. And listen, I'm an Eagle fan. I get you,
Right.
but like, it's not easy to find these guys.
Very true.
If it were, then you would have done that years ago.
Very true. I mean, I can't deny it. What was you about to say, dude? I'm listening, Jay.
Yeah, but honestly, with this season, though, that's the with the Cowboys. The team when you one of the greatest things that you really don't know if some say Dwayne Cowboys is like when you watch the Cowboys.
Hold on, Jay. Hold on 1 second, Jay. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no, Jay. I was picking up a little bit of what you were putting down because you were saying Tony Romo had like the top 5 offensive lines. He didn't have like the best receivers and all that stuff, right? You're talking about the criticism that Tony Romo was receiving in his career.
Yeah, because he was the quarterback for the Cowboys. And I feel like Dak is getting the same treatment, but in reality, everyone's quick to point the finger at the quarterback, but not the person in charge who took over. Because ever since Jerry Jones took over, they just been a mediocre team, like you said, and it's always been a circus. I never heard of an owner taking radio interviews right after games as if he played the game his damn self. You know what I mean?
I never heard of an owner GM his own team. I've never seen that in the NFL.
Right.
And that's what he's doing.
So, to your point, again, no one's trying to be a Dak, apologist here. But if you just like football, you understand football, you understand he's a good quarterback.
Yeah, he's good.
He's a very good quarterback. It's just like you said, what were they going to do? You were either going to let him walk, and then you either let him walk, or you were going to try to use him to at least draw ticket sales. Because right now, we're at the point in Jerry's life, and I will hope he had some type of life-changing moment when they got beat down by the Lions on his 82nd birthday. But he's at a point in his life now where he has to do something he's never used to doing and admit that he's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. Jerry Jones prides himself on always seeming like he's the guy that always knows what he's doing, but he finally put himself in a corner where he can't get out of this now. You can fire Mike McCarthy all you want, you're still stuck with the same team. You can't get nobody else for Dak because you just gave him 60 mil. If you do trade him, that means you're probably eating most of the contract. You're still stuck financially, and you're also admitting that you're wrong after you openly came out and said Dak is my guy, he's my quarterback. Right? You keep saying, "Hey, I'm gonna handle the Michael situation," but if Michael walks because you don't got no money, you got to admit you're wrong. And this is the first time I think in the 30 years he's been the owner. He has to sit here. He's going to have to walk to a mic at some point and say, "Hey guys, I messed this up."
Yeah, man, that's crazy. It's crazy to think of it like that. And remember, I think in the off season or earlier this season, he even said like, "It's on me." Right? Like I picked the players, signed the coaches. Right? I think he said in the interview like, "You look at all the good that I've done with Dallas. If you're gonna look at all the bad, look at all the good that I've done." Right? That's what he was talking about. And like you said, now all the eyes are on Jerry Jones, saying, "Okay, if that's what you really want, we're looking at you, Jerry." And quite frankly, 30 years is 30 years, man. And like you said, there's nowhere else to go. And he has to look in the camera and admit that he's wrong. But he's always going to spin it some sort of way where he's not going to admit that because that's how the NFL works. Very, very rarely do you see somebody in the NFL admit that they're wrong. It just never happens. And Jay just said it. He might be forced into a position where he has to look at his fan base and say,
Right.
I messed up. Because he
Right.
clearly did. Because he clearly did.
So let me ask you this, Arthur. Okay, if they stick with that and the team doesn't support it, where do you go?
You're in purgatory. That's what you are. You're always going to be in purgatory. Dude, if they didn't sign Dak Prescott, you realize that they would still owe him like $40-50 million. It would be a dead money hit if they didn't sign him. That's how they struck, because they backloaded a lot of the contract when he was from his previous contract, so that they had enough cap room to sign all the players, to get all these draft picks, to bring in all the weapons in. They backloaded the contract, and now in a contract year he had 37 touchdowns, the 12-4 season, right? And you're sitting there and you're looking at it and you're like, well, damn, if I let him go now, I still owe the guy $80 million. At least if I sign him, I'm like, okay, I'm getting at least minimum, worst minimum, top 12, 15 quarterback at his worst in the NFL. I could be an 800 ball club. I could maybe sell some sort of level of hope, right? Because that's what Jerry Jones has done. He thought maybe he could do that, and that's why he talked about the comment, we're all in on this offseason. We're all in. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying, like Jay said, he's trying to get ticket sales, man. He's trying to bring people into the seats. But now Cowboy fans are rising up and saying, you know what? This product is nonsense. There's nothing good here. And in a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, you're going to see the same thing happen in teams like San Francisco, in teams that have all this money issues, except San Francisco can draft. That's their saving grace. They know how to draft and develop. The Cowboys, they know how to draft guys, but then they develop B-plus players and they pay them A-plus money. That's their freaking problem. And they're going to continue to do that as long as Jerry Jones is running the show. And I don't know how long that's going to last. God bless him, because he is 82 years old. But unfortunately, until he's not running the operation, this is what it's going to be. And there's really nothing else as a Dallas Cowboy fan that you could do to change that.
Dallas' only hope would be if his son finally step up and tell his dad, "You got to step aside." That would be where his son finally get full control. Because again, his son is the one that usually typically does the drafting part too. Which again, he doesn't miss on too many players. It's more the development piece. But again, how do you expect anybody to develop in that circus that you call of an organization But if
Right.
his son can tell him, listen, if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan at this point, your only saving grace would be, again, get his son to tell his dad, hey, you can still be the owner, but you gotta step aside. Let me run this, because one, you're getting way too old, and now you're just getting in your own way. But
Right.
two, and most, then you're gonna have to make the sacrifice, and you're gonna have to decide, okay, are we okay with moving on from CD Lamb, because that's the only salary money you can really realistically move, and you could potentially get some picks out of it, because certain teams will pick up a CD Lamb contract because that's what you're supposed to pay for him anyway. That was market price regardless. You know what I mean? So like you can move that and probably get a first or a second round pick out of that. And then you just kind of rebuild around Dak through the draft. Now the only thing is you got to make sure your picks hit, because again, and you got to also pretty much tell your fans, hey, we're rebuilding, but we're rebuilding around Dak. And then you got to see is if that rebuild is worth keeping Michael Parsons around too, or do you save that money and try to go get cheaper free agents to fill those holes around Dak? That's kind of your only fix if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. Because if not, but at this rate, I don't see any of that happening. Because again, to my point earlier, that means that Jerry would have to admit that he messed up, and I can never see that happening. And not while he's alive and breathing, anyway.
Mm. Mm. So let me ask y'all this. Let's go right to the next topic. How about what do you guys think about Jaden Daniels? Who's the biggest threat to the Philadelphia Eagles right now, as far as them making it to where they're trying to go to right now? Is it Green Bay? Is it Washington? Or is it Tampa Bay?
Nick Sirianni.
Mm. Mm.
I'm so dead serious with that. I'm so dead serious with
I
that.
see you, Asif, I see you up there smiling, Asif. I see you.
It's a very real answer, is what that is. It's a real ass answer, because Jay knows we have the talent,
Right.
especially on the offensive side of the ball. The talent's there,
Right.
and the defense has been pleasantly surprising on how they've played. Now, do I believe they can keep up top 10 level defense? I don't believe so. I really don't. I don't think you could do that with this scheme. But the fact that we're top 10 right now and we gave Joe Burrow the business is a very promising sign. But
Right.
like he said, I don't think there's a game outside of Detroit and maybe, just maybe, San Francisco, just because of stylistics, that Philly cannot beat in the NFC. Like, I think Philly can match up with anybody in the NFC and go toe for toe with them. Maybe Tampa Bay is a little bit of a curveball, because God knows has Jalen Hurts' number, unfortunately. But you know what I mean. But like again, with this new identity, Philly can compete with anybody, man. They really could.
Well, I'm looking at them, right? I'm looking at them, and I believe that I agree with Jay. I believe Nick Sirianni could be the pro. I think it's Vic Fangio, personally, because I don't trust that defense. I know Darius Slade went down. I know that you guys still haven't fixed the linebacker problem. I don't know if you still have the S rushers. I love Hassan Reddick tonight showed me why I still think that he should be a Philadelphia Eagle, especially with them needing edge rushers. I don't trust Nakobe Dean. I'm a big fan of Hassan Reddick, and I was hoping that the Steelers actually picked him up in free agency. I believe that we could have absolutely used him, and I'm going to tell you why, because I'm not a big fan of Alex Highsmith. So I really wanted them to put he was like a bigger Nick Herbig. He was like a bigger Nick Herbig, and I was hoping that they actually put him in that position to where he could be on the other side of Watt, and then meeting at that quarterback like that, and then we could have used Nick Herbig just anywhere we wanted to at that point. I trust Hassan Reddick more than I trust Alex Smith. Alex Smith does good at setting the edge, but getting to the quarterback, he's terrible. He's terrible. And right now, since we can't get a receiver, since the Pittsburgh Steelers can't get a receiver, even if they do, we have enough money where I'm like, listen, go put it on the line. get an offensive lineman and get a defensive lineman to put next to Cam Hayward and and Keanu Benton. Just shore up that defense because for in Pittsburgh, offense win games, but defense win championships. And that's how we've been surviving the last couple of years. That's how we keep winning. Is because we invest in our defense. We don't play around like that. It's nice to have them pretty cars in the garage, but at some point, man, you got to have somebody to wash them too. You understand what I'm saying? And that defense is where it is. So this week they have Cam Sutton coming back. Put Cam Sutton in there. We already have Joey Porter Jr. Dante Jackson, okay, and Minka Fitzpatrick. So the defense just gets stronger. But the problem is not for us there. It's us being able to protect Russ and for us to be able to get to quarterbacks and be able to stop players like Derrick Henry. So I'm big on defensive players. So when I see Hassan Reddick came in the game tonight, and what does he do? He ends up being the one to actually close the door on the game. He closed the door basically with that sack, but he was doing it all night long. He was collapsing that pocket all night long, and I'm just a big supporter of defense. So for me, when I look at you in the NFC East division, of course, it's not the Giants. Of course, it's not. I'm never going to trust the Giants, but I'm not going to trust too many teams from the South either. I really don't believe in the Saints unless they have Derek Carr. But I am fearful of the Atlanta Falcons, of what they did. I don't even know how we went in that stadium and beat them, to be honest with you. With them throwing the ball around the yard, but there was somebody that had an interception that day, which was Cam Sutton. Okay, and I believe that you guys. I don't believe this. I can't trust Washington just yet. But if you guys have home field advantage, if you guys get home field advantage, I believe that the NFC Championship will go through Philadelphia if you guys can get to that point.
So, I mean, again, I'm not going to disrespect the Lions. They're very good. They're very well coached, very disciplined, and their defense is very. They have one of the better defenses out there. Never ever going to disrespect the 49ers because, again, when they're fully healthy, they're a threat.
Right.
I'm a little bit more on board with the Washington Commanders because I think they struck gold. Everybody and their grandma that knew football said Jaden Daniels was going to be good. We saw it at LSU before he got hurt, and he's been everything and more so far. Because again, it's not like the Commanders did a big overhaul of what their team was last year. It's most of the same guys still there. I mean, their main wide receiver is still Scary Terry. Bijan Robinson is still their running back, except now they got a playmaker. He's doing things that you would expect someone like a Lamar Jackson or someone to do. So I'm not going to count them out because, again, they always play this. I mean, listen, last year they played this tough with Sam Howell. And Jaden looks way better than Sam Howell. So I'm not going to sit there because, again, it's a week-to-week league, and if they catch us at the right time, they might be able to beat us. But my biggest thing, let me address the Hassan Reddick thing. Me personally, again, very good player. Not going to take away anything from him, but he's a very one-dimensional. He has to go after the quarterback. If you paid attention to anything towards that last season with us, his biggest issue is when we played a team that knew how to spread the field, he could not tackle in the open field to save his life. Patrick Mahomes had one leg, and he was outrunning Hassan Reddick and juking him with one ankle because he can't tackle in open space. He has to go after quarterback. He has to hit him on the blind side. He has to beat it off the block. And what the Kansas City Chiefs did to us, that's why we couldn't get any sacks. I don't want to hear no more excuses about people were slipping on the field because they were playing on the same conditions and their quarterback had one leg. I'm going to keep re-emphasizing that because we had the most sacks that year in the league by any front four, and we could not touch a hobbled man one time. All they did was they spaced the field. They played in the pistol formation a couple of times. They did a couple of trick plays, and they moved their offensive line around. And they made him have to be in one-on-one situations where he had to tackle in the open field, and he could not do that. To me, that's a liability. TJ Watt, you can't do that for him because TJ Watt is going to either punch the ball, tackle you, or he's going to destroy you. Like it's
No
not
point.
there's no if and or buts about that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my thing with Hassan Reddick. Phenomenal player for a system. If long as he can be attack with that
Right.
defensive line that we had at that time, with the
Uh-huh.
Fletcher Cox of the world, with Jaden Carter coming into his own, you know what I mean? Like with that line that we had, that defensive line that we had that year, Josh Sweat was coming into his own on the other side. You can
Mm-hmm.
do that. You could have that one, goal of attack, because you also had people behind you. We had a more younger Darius Slay who can actually survive a whole game without getting hurt and only playing 2 quarters. We had, you know what I mean, like James Bradbury, how much we used to make fun of him. James Bradbury at least knew how to tackle in the secondary, because that's our problem with CJ right now. He's a ball hawk, but he can't make tackles. We don't have no dogs. We had Epps back there who can hit. We don't have no people that can hit anymore. So you had a little protection where he can kind of go after the quarterback. That's what the Jets have right now, and that's why he looks so good, because if he doesn't make the tackle, somebody behind him will. And that's the thing. So, again, no disrespect to Hassan. I think it was good that he moved on. I'm glad he found a situation, but I don't think he was worth the money for us to just be that one-trick pony, because at this time, we need people that can actually tackle, because at this point, our whole secondary can't tackle right now, and I don't need a defensive edge rusher who can't tackle in the open field when most people just throw the ball to the running back in the flat, and he can't do that. He can't handle that assignment. So, and then back to I'm not worried about Fangio's defense, because that's the same defense that got us to a Super Bowl before. I'm more worried about our coach, who's supposed to be an offensive-minded coach that can't make adjustments. If you notice, a
Right.
lot of games we lose are against actual coaches that know how to make scheme adjustments. He doesn't know how to do that because he usually relies on coordinators to carry him. To me, at this point in time, just like everybody else, it's a litmus. It's a litmus test, right? We made it to the Super
Right.
Bowl because we had 2 brilliant coordinators who both became head coaches, and then in the following year they beat us. The following year we
Mm.
were 10-1 based off of the talent that we had. Jalen Hurts was
Right.
playing way above of what he was doing. AJ Brown was having a very, very great year, knowing that he was coming up for an extension. Devontae Smith finally found his footing in his role. And then
Mm-hmm.
again, we just had a great overall team defensive wise, because it was the last ride for your veterans like Fletcher Cox. You had Jason Kelsey being the veteran on the offensive end. So you didn't have to do too much coaching on the second year either, until
Right.
it came time to the collapse. And now when you really need that voice of reason, the leader among
Right.
men could not be found, and we got bounced out by Tampa. Now you
Mm.
come to this year, again, take away the talent. When your two wide
Mm-hmm.
receivers got hurt early, all of a sudden we was losing. Not for
Right.
nothing, and one of y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. If you have a running back that
Mm-hmm.
normally average over 1,000 yards, scrimmage yards, and he had one of
Mm-hmm.
the worst offensive lines. That's the team he was coming from. Yeah, they had one of the worst offensive
Right.
lines. You have one of the better offensive lines in the league, and for
Mm.
whatever reason, it always takes you to the second half to say, "Hey, maybe we should hand the ball off to this guy." I
Mm.
don't know. I don't know what you do in coaching school 101, but I'm pretty sure I'm establishing the run first before anything else. And it shouldn't be that hard when you have number 26 coming in looking the healthiest he ever been, looking
Right.
quick out the gap, the quickest he ever looked, and how dominantly and how strong he is. Like this was his revenge year. You could tell. You know how we all always break up with that one girlfriend, and then we all hit the gym really hard, and then we come back looking like a 10 the next summer. That was
Right.
Saquon this year. And for whatever reason, up until the Giants game, we decided, hey, maybe, hey, should we run the ball? No, let's throw it 20 times first with a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback who, albeit is good, he ain't slinging it like that. Not to be
Mm-mm.
throwing it 30, 40 times a game. When
Right.
you have literally arguably a top 5 running back in your backfield. To me, that
Mm.
comes down to coaching and scheming. Because again, you cannot convince me otherwise. All this play calling is all Kellen Moore, because I seen what he did with Ezekiel Elliott in his prime. I seen him do things with other running backs who are a lot less, talented than Saquon. I see him do things with a lot less talented offenses. Somebody is not either prepping right, coaching right. Again, some of our disciplinary plays where we're getting flags that we normally don't get, that all falls to me on the head coach. And you out here arguing with fans, because the thing is, when you notice with he's always in front of the camera, posing, doing all these other shenanigans when we're winning, but when we're losing, he look lost or he'll lose his cool because he's too emotional. Some say, "Oh, we like that emotional leader." And listen, the players might like that, but for me, as an X and O's guys, I need to see you make these adjustments in the second half after teams already figured out what you're trying to do. I need you to figure out how do we get the ball to our playmakers outside of doing jump balls to AJ Brown, knowing he can run routes as well. He's a great route runner, and for whatever reason, we just allow him ride these. All we do is send him on a fly or a post route every single
I know the
time, and you can make him. He's too big to not. Why don't you send him through the middle? He's way too big. Ain't nobody going to hit him, and at least not going to bring him down the first one. If Debo can go through the middle and he's bigger than Debo, why can't he go through the middle? Why are we sending Devontae Smith, the smallest person we got, through the middle so he can get killed? And that's why he got hurt the first time. So to me, I think we have some teams we got to worry about, but we can outcoach ourselves out the playoffs before anything else.
Awesome. Do you double down on that?
To a degree. To a degree, because I do agree with Jay in that for whatever reason the game plan in the first quarter on the first drives, it always seems off. And then once we're in the flow of the game, all of a sudden we look just that much better. We look so much more better as every NFL team's got a scripted set of drives, a scripted set of plays for their first 2 to 3 drives. And every time Philadelphia takes the field, it does not look like they're prepared. Now, to me, and I think Jay agrees, that looks like a Nick Sirianni issue. It looks like a Sirianni issue. And then as the game goes on, it seems to me that they make an adjustment with Kellen Moore or whomever, and then they get the flow back into the game again, right? Now, here's where I'm going to ask Jay a question because I'm curious to what he responds with. Because we blame a lot of the losses and a lot of the mishaps on Nick Sirianni, and rightfully so because a lot of the stuff has been inexcusable. However, these past 3 weeks coming out of the bye, they've taken a different approach to the game. They're running the ball more. They're featuring Saquon a little bit more. They're limiting Jalen Hurts' attempts in his passing game, and they're using Jalen Hurts more in the run game as well. And it's opening up things in the passing game. Does Sirianni get any credit for that? Because if we're going to critique him and be critical of a guy who has been very shaky in the beginning of the year, I would have to think we have to start giving him just a little bit more credit nowadays, especially coming off the bye, because he had the players meeting. He had everybody come into the locker room and say, hey, what could we do differently? And look, it's Captain Obvious stuff. Yes, I get it. And every fan knows, like, hey, give the ball to 26 and everything will be all right. Yes, it took him a long time to figure it out, but you know what? He went out and did it. He went out and said, you know what? Let's just make that the game plan. Let's do it. And they've been as good as any team in the NFL since their bye week. So does he get credit for that? Is my question, because this is just me trying to get a pulse on Eagles Nation here, because I would happen to lean towards that. Yeah, he has to get some sort of credit for that.
Right.
Here's what I would say personally, and this is me again. I will give him credit in the sense of him admitting that he was part of the issue. I will give him that much credit because I never heard a press conference where your quarterback said we're finally in harmony. So that told me there was an issue before that, which means there was something going on. And obviously, again, if your quarterback is saying that means he probably voiced that concern at some point and you weren't there to try to listen. So there's that. 2, I would say this. I'm holding my judgments right now, too, because you're also talking about right after the bye, we came against the Giants, which we still didn't score in the first quarter. We have too much talent on the team to not score points at all in any first quarter. The Bengals was the first time we scored in the first quarter, and it was a field goal. And the Bengals outside, barring Joe Burrow's heroics and him slinging the ball like the true gunslinger we know him as, their defense is putrid. They're god awful. And again, we were supposed to beat those two teams just off of talent alone. And again, I seen this team make it further than most teams just because of the talent we have. I need to see a true matchup for me to be before I be like, hey, you're doing something right. Because again, until you beat a Detroit to me, until you beat a 49ers, until you beat a team that I know we're probably going to face in the playoffs, these cupcake wins, which I consider to be cupcake wins, don't mean nothing to me because I think me and you can go coach them against these type of teams right now because right now the Giants can't figure nothing out. They're just praying to God that they can, stay in the game and make it a game and look like a actual NFL team and not, a flag football team. And again, the Bengals, I don't know what's going on over there because they don't even know what's going on over there. So again, I will give him credit because whatever there was an issue between him, the quarterback, the players, or whatever, it seems like they at least addressed it. So I will give him credit for that. But I need to see more because again, it's just a couple of things. It's just a lot of things that I've seen over these last couple of years that I noticed. Like again, we all blamed Brian Johnson last year, but who put Brian Johnson in that place? And again, if Brian Johnson was that bad, and the Eagle fans will let you know if it's really that bad. It's not like he can't say, oh, I ain't know Brian Johnson was that bad because we voice our opinion very loudly and very clearly, very quickly. And my thing is, as a head coach, if Brian Johnson is doing that bad, then guess who should be calling the plays at that point? You, sir. Because if it was Andy Reid would be the first one to pick up his headset and pick up that play sheet and say, "Guess what? I'm calling this game." And he has one of the best offensive coordinators in the league, and he still be calling the plays of the game. So again, yes, I'm going to give him the critique, mostly because at the end of the day, I look at AJ Brown. He fulfilled his contract needs. When he's on the field, he makes a difference. When Devontae Smith step on the field, he makes a difference. Again, whatever. I know some Eagle fans like Jalen Hurts. I know some fans don't like him, but he does what he does based off of who he is. He never. We know he wasn't. He's not a Josh Allen, but he sure as hell is no bum either. And he does his job. If you put him in situations like, hey, we're going to do these quarterback design scheme runs, we're going to do the BBL, aka the tush push. When we do certain things like that, he thrives because again, we're taking the ball out of his hands from throwing it. But when he does need to make a throw, he makes a great throw, as long as he's not throwing 35 plus times. So we know what we're getting out of him. The problem is we're in year 3, and I have no idea what I'm going to get out of my head coach. And that's a problem. Because, again, I can look at the Cowboys and know what I'm going to get out of Mike McCarthy. Like, hey, he got what he got, and we know he's going to call an average game. We know what we're going to get out of Dan Campbell. He's going to go for it for every fourth down. We know Kyle Shanahan is going to come with the craziest offensive schemes that anybody has ever seen because he's going to prepare all week for you. We know Big Red is going to come with every trick play in the book that he can because he knows what we're going to get from him. I can't tell you if our head coach can actually coach or if he's, or if he's just there just to be a figurehead at this point. And that's my problem. Because again, have y'all ever heard him talk about X's O's in his post game conference? Have you ever heard him talking about breaking out? Like again, I'm not sitting here trying to say he needs to be a Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick would be like, yeah, they're playing a cover 2, and this is why this happened, and we need to do better on this. I ain't never heard Nick Sirianni break down anything, but he's supposed to be this offensive genius. What team was he calling the offense for before this? Can anybody answer that question?
Good question. That's a damn good question.
But he's an offensive genius, right? I know where Kellen Moore been, where he earned his stripes. Like, think about it. Just take a second, and someone give me the list of teams where he actually was the head offensive coordinator that had and the team had success. I'll wait.
Just to respond to that, I do. not that I have a retort because he hasn't been an offensive play calling coordinator. Like he hasn't. The last place he was in was Indy.
Right.
I think he was a receivers coach there, and he was the offensive coordinator under Frank Reich, who was actually calling the plays. Right. So that was the last job
Mm.
that he had. Um, do you think that's by design though by Philly? Because I've heard reports, I've heard like a lot of stories about how every game plan that they come up with is collaborative. They
Mm.
got Sirianni, they got Fangio, they got Kellen Moore in the room, and also in the room they have Jeffrey Lurie and they have Howie Roseman involved in the game plan. I don't think I've ever heard of an NFL team that has their GM and owner be a part of the game plan week
What?
to week. You know
Well,
what I mean? Like I've never heard that before. So when you say like I don't know what Sirianni does as a coach, like what's his identity as a coach? Do you think that's by design? Do you think they're like, hey, you know what? We can come in and have influence over Nick Sirianni because we know
Hmm.
he's not necessarily an X's and O's guy. We know he's not designing the offense per se, although it is his playbook, but it's a simplistic offense nonetheless. He's not doing anything out of the ordinary. We just know he wants to make big plays. He's going to go for it on fourth down. He's going to be braggadocious when he's winning. He's going to go for it for the big gun plays. But
Mm.
in terms of establishing rhythm in a game, in terms of having a flow in the game, having a feel for the game, he doesn't have that because, quite frankly, the front office doesn't necessarily care about that, do they? They want the big shots. They want the big plays. They want the home run ball. They don't care whether or not we run the ball. They want to put up 28 points and want to do it through the air. That's why they paid Jalen Hurts $50 million. That's why they paid AJ Brown $35 million. That's why they paid Devontae Smith and put all this money in the offensive line and all this money on the offensive coaching staff, getting a guy like Kellen Moore to call the plays because they're like, listen, at the end of the day, we want big plays. That's what we want. So, like, the idea of like can Sirianni call a game? I don't think he can, but I think that's by design. I think they want that type of coach there. Why do you think they hired guys who just like have very little head coaching experience? They want somebody who they can come in and kind of just say like, hey, run these plays on against this
Mhm.
defense because we know we have the talent on the outside. It should work. And when it doesn't work like it does on the first scripted drives, and now it goes to a Kellen Moore offense, you have to switch it and you have to start running the
Mm.
ball and play within the game. And now all of a sudden, that's when the team starts to thrive. So I don't know where
Now
you
you
guys are at in terms of Sirianni and how you think the organization wants their head coach to be. Because the last time we had a head coach who had a set of fucking nuts on him was Doug Peterson. And
mm.
even then, he wasn't the guy that called the ballsiest play in our history. It was our quarterback. The backup quarterback called Philly Philly. So it wasn't even him. You know what I mean? So like, I think we just are sitting here and we're looking at an organization in the front office that wants a coach to be impotent because they want to put their input on the game. They want to put their input on the game plan. Like I said, I've never heard of a team. Do you think that Bill Belichick would allow Robert Kraft to come in and be part of the game plan? Do you think Mike Tomlin would allow the Rooneys to come in and be part of the game plan? Do you think Shanahan would want John Lynch and your family to come in on the game plan? I don't think that would happen. I think the only
Hell
reason that
no.
happens in Philly is because Sirianni's the coach and they hired him. And what is he going to tell you? Is he going to say, hey, get the fuck out of here, let me make the game plan here? I don't even know if the guy's a good or bad coach. I really don't. I know he doesn't really know the game too well, but for whatever
Uh,
reason, these guys in the locker room seem to really like Sirianni for whatever it's worth. They like and they're behind this guy for whatever reason. And maybe that's enough with the talent alone to be able to survive the year. But will it get us to a Super Bowl like you say, Jay? Will it beat teams like Detroit? Will it beat the teams like the Niners, like the Rams, like the Packers? To me, I don't think so. I don't think we're ready
mm.
for it this year. Maybe we need a head coach, but quite frankly, I don't think the organization wants a coach with a set of nuts or who has an offensive scheme because they want a guy who's impotent. That's just my opinion.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna double down on that, Asif. And let me tell you something. The reason I'm gonna say this one, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles head coaching job is the most uncomfortable job in all of sports. I'm gonna start with that. Two, I'm gonna say this. You're right. You're absolutely right. And you took the words right out of my mouth because I wanted to come with that, and you started bringing it out. That you're right. I've never seen a organization where the owner and the general manager is involved and all in the game planning and stuff like that. As we talked after the Atlanta Falcons game, when I told you that the camera panned around and it was on Nick Sirianni, but right behind him was Howie Roseman staring at him in the most uncomfortable situation where this man couldn't even look at him because they were about to lose the game. He's sitting there like, there's your boss standing right there, and he's watching you, and it's like you don't even know what to say. Like, now, it's something crazy going on the field, but you don't expect you to turn around and your GM be down on the damn field when he should be up in the box somewhere. Of course, he's a general manager. He can go wherever he wants. But if you want your coach and everybody operating at a high level and you want them functioning at their normal level, you don't need to be right there on the field. And I think that he wants to be seen. I think he makes himself be seen. I think he likes being out in the media. I think he likes people knowing that he's in control. And I've noticed that about Philadelphia. So one of the most uncomfortable jobs in the world is being a head coach anywhere in Philadelphia, as long as it's not the damn Philadelphia 76ers. You can anybody, me and you can coach there. Jay can coach there. Hey, listen, why don't we go get the trash man can coach there? You know what I'm saying? Like, look, anybody can coach there. Anybody can coach for the Philadelphia 76ers. The ticket man can coach the Philadelphia 76ers, them damn bums. But let me just tell you, right? In Philadelphia Eagles, man, if they could just get Nick Sirianni is like, to me, he is the puppet. He is the guy that won't push back. He's not a guy like just like Asif was saying, they want a guy like that in there because he's not going to be like a Bill Belichick that says, I'm coming in here and I'm the head coach and I'm the general manager. Every time especially on draft day, who makes the biggest splashes in NFL football on draft day and especially free agency? It's Howie Roseman, right? Who has all the picks? It's Howie Roseman. So every time you pan over into that room when the Philadelphia Eagles are showing up on the board, it's Howie Roseman and everybody else behind him and him with the phone and him working the deals. It's like the coaching them are just like kind of like over there, you know? And I think that this is the same thing that goes on in Dallas. So they do share those kind of things alike. But when you go to Pittsburgh and you pan in on Pittsburgh's room, you don't see a Rooney nowhere. Of all those people around there that are Roonies, which is a family organization, you don't see the Roonies getting on the phone and doing whatever it is. It's Mike, it's Khan, Omar Khan, and Mike Tomlin. It's them two on the road, and that's how they're doing it. Okay, the head coach is right there involved, and I'm pretty sure that Omar Khan has enough respect for Mike Tomlin to not cross the line.